Oops. Welcome. Oh, there we go. Welcome, everybody. Adjusting my camera. There we go. Welcome, everybody. Friday, July 12th. I'm never going to get this how I want it. It's okay. It's good enough. Welcome, everybody. John Aravosis here. Friday, July 12th. Coming to you live from Washington, D.C. Welcome all. Adjusting my light, like always. There we go. At least it's not sunny out today, and it actually is cool out. Well, 80 degrees, which, you know, it's been 95 forever. Anyway, welcome, guys. Let me get TikTok rolling here. 1 second. Busy news day here. All right. Beep, 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 beep. Let me see here. We're going to talk about Biden and Ukraine both. I'll leave that up as the description. Why not? Biden press of Ukraine war. Okay, that works. It'll freak out the trolls too. Anything I can do to attract the Russian trolls to TikTok is always a joy. Anyway, hey, Deemer in Malta. 1 second here. Oops, that's not it. Oops, sorry. I'm trying to set up my TikTok, which I was going to do, but I was a little late today getting set up with you all. But I figured I'd go live on YouTube just so you know I'm here while I get ready for TikTok. Here's TikTok. All right. All right. Oops. There we go. All right. Go live. Excellent. All right. And of course, my apartment's cold, so I'm going to have to be adjusting the temperature. Alexa, raise the temperature 1 degree. There we go. There we go. All right. Woo-woo. Welcome all. All right. TikTok's finally joining us shortly. There's the TikTokers. Hey, guys. How are we all doing? Welcome all. Friday, July 12th. John Aravosis here. Welcome, everybody. We have a busy news day. I kind of hate that in a way because I hate when there's too much news because I feel like we can't talk about any one thing. Thank you, Mark Starr. Thank you, Elizabeth. Hey, MZ. Happy Friday, all. Thank you, PC Noel, for the gift. How are we all doing? Welcome, everybody. We are here on TikTok here and YouTube on my computer, so that's why I'm looking back and forth. Thank you, Marcy, for the gifts. Hey, Jens in Sweden. So how's everybody doing? Oh, there's a name. There's a name. Shiba Belarusi. Oh, Shiba Belarus. Okay. I'm not with Shiba. Is Shiba just your name, Shiba? But from Belarus or a Belarusian, maybe. Although you got Ukrainian flag there. Thank you, Randy, for the gift. McDarrow, John, number of gifts coming in. Thank you, guys. Randy again, Richard again. Ooh. Oh, my. Hey, guys. Thank you, Taylor. Hey, Larissa. The family Lavery. Yeah, somebody gifted Richard a subscription. Oh, well, Richard, we don't know who. It's not always clear who. Thank you, Nicholas. People give subscriptions. People can give gift memberships to my show on TikTok and YouTube, and it shows really fast sometimes. But yesterday, YouTube wasn't even showing who actually gets them. The computer decides who gets them, like TikTok and YouTube decide themselves. So we never quite know who's going to get them, but that's how you got it. So thank you, whoever did that. Thank you, Tarad. Oh, Jane Lee just subscribed again themselves. Good. Excellent. Oh, my. Oh, Frank. Yeah, well, see, Frank, here's the problem. You're repeating Russian propaganda. If you listen to Russian propaganda, President Zelensky's a space alien. So, you know, sorry, Frank was a Russian. We had our first Russian troll. Welcome, Russia. Здравствуйте, Russian trolls. Well, may I just say, the Russian trolls are going to be very, very happy or very unhappy today because the news is not good for, the news is actually horrific. Some not good news for Ukraine, but some horrific news for Russia. Oh my God. Thank you, Cherry. Appreciate supporting you guys. Horrific news. Did Alec Baldwin win his case? Somebody just said Alec Baldwin is free. Did he win the case? I did not see the news on that. Thank you, adventurers, for the gift. I know that was record time for the trolls. That's pretty quick, Flying Medic. I agree. Thank you, Martin, for the gift. That was very quick. We usually don't get trolls this quickly, but let me tell you, like I said, they're going to be very unhappy with today's show. MTD, motion to dismiss. Oh, really? With prejudice? Holy shit. Wow. Hey, Cherry. Hey, Marco. So basically, the judge dismissed the case against Alec Baldwin. I haven't studied law in 40 years, so I forget some of the details here. But thank you, James. But basically, as I recall, thank you, Taylor. Remind me, the practicing lawyers out there, the judge basically can say there's no case here. That basically you haven't proven the case. The guy's like, you're not going to be able to prove the case. Wow, that's insane. Oh, that's wild. Thank you, Squaddles. Sally, any idea what happened to gift membership yesterday? No, it doesn't tell me. YouTube must have given it to somebody because they always give it to somebody. But for some reason yesterday, it wasn't showing who it goes to. But I have no anything. It's all in the big YouTube cloud, but they must have given it to somebody. But I'm surprised it didn't show us right away. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Jorge. Yeah, I'm glad Alec Baldwin got off, actually, because, whatever. Long story, that whole story. That's the movie set where the gun went off and had bullets in it and killed somebody and everything. Really horrible. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Taylor. But it seemed to me like it was kind of a bogus case against Alec Baldwin, but whatever. And the judge was obviously not happy because he made a ruling the other day that was very friendly to, very friendly. Except Lupo, Baldwin didn't kill the person, right? I mean, somebody put bullets in that gun. I'd like to know why somebody put real bullets in that gun. Anyway, we are on a tangent. Let's not go into that tangent. So welcome, guys. This is the Aravosis Report, my daily show. We do Monday to Friday, 6 o'clock Eastern. We talk about the latest news from Ukraine. Often it pisses off the Russians. And today's going to be a very good day for pissing off the Russians because I've got lots of really bad news for Russia. Thank you, Cherry. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Jezek. Who knows? Who knows? Now, Jay, you don't have a gift subscription, it says, though. You don't have any subscription, just so you know. So I don't know. Because basically your name would be green on YouTube if you've got a subscription. So yours doesn't actually, unless you had it for a month and it just expired maybe. That could be it. Thank you, Bjorn. Okay, so guys, welcome. The way the show works is for anybody who's new, I go through the latest news from Ukraine. I sort of go and cultivate the news all day, and then I walk you through it. I try to pick stories that I think obviously matter and stories that tell you something about what's going on. Now, I will say briefly, two things first. Thank you for the gifts. Anybody who offers gifts. Actually, it's working today. Okay, Jennifer just offered a free gift membership on YouTube, and it immediately got given to Possum Nation. So today it is showing us who it's going to. You guys can buy gift memberships on TikTok and YouTube that basically, it's a monthly subscription to support my work. You can give a gift for a month that it'll give randomly to somebody, but basically you can buy it for yourself. It gives you a special little thing on your name, so I know you're a subscriber, that you're supporting my work. On TikTok, it's SNN next to the name in brown. On YouTube, it's green, all the green names. Chris, thank you for being a member for 10 months there. Who was that? Tari, thank you, Tari. It also gives you access to our Saturday shows. We're doing a show Saturday morning. Exactly like Jay's name there. Every Saturday morning, I do a special show for the paid subscribers. Thank you, Annie. Annie just gifted a membership but it's not showing us who got it, Annie. See, that's what's weird again. It's not showing us who got it. So I don't know what's going on. Oh, there it is, Jay. It gave it to Jay. Okay. So it was kind of thinking there for a second. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you guys like the shirt. It's a newish shirt. In any case, what was I going to say? I'm getting there's a lot of stuff going on today. Thank you, Marcy. And somebody just threw in a bunch of free gift memberships over on YouTube, on TikTok. That's great. So 5 of you, Andy, Kit Kat, Brandon, Inevitable, and your boy just got a membership for a month, courtesy of Blue Ariel. So the way it works is, what happens is, I've got a Saturday show that I do. And yeah, thank you. Thank you, PC Noel. I was off on a tangent. I have a Saturday show I do every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern time, US. That's Washington, D.C. or New York City time. And it is a show I do just for the paid subscribers as a thank you for the paid monthly subscribers. We hang out. It's much more casual. I don't bring a sort of a news script like I've got today, which means starting from the very beginning, we can talk. I can see your comments. It's a much smaller group, more intimate, and it allows us to have a back and forth, which is nice. And I do it just as a thank you for you guys. Thank you, Andrew. Many times Vlad joins us. Vlad, our Ukrainian friend. I always forget to message him. I will here joining us Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, if you can. Okay. There we go. I always forget to message Vlad, and it helps to message. So my friend Vlad from Ukraine joins us sometimes to give us a Ukrainian perspective on what's going on. But anyway, it's a nice hangout. All right, let's get rolling here. So thank you, Running. I want to start briefly with Biden's press conference last night because we sort of ended the show for an hour watching it. And this is a news show. I talk about the latest news from Ukraine, but we also talk about the latest news. I live in Washington, D.C. Thank you, Ava. I've been here 40 years. I have worked in national politics for 40 years. and I've got a lot of experience in it. So I try to sort of treat this as a news show. Thank you, Ava. Beyond Ukraine, when there's other important stuff going on. And I think the American presidential election, I think we all agree, is important stuff. A quick little aside on that, just to give you my take. So, President Biden's kind of in trouble. He had the really bad debate with Trump. And it was a bad debate. I mean, he looked horrible. And a lot of people were calling for him to step down. So Biden held a press conference last night at around 6:30 Washington, D.C. time to talk about, basically spend an hour with the press to prove that he's still capable of doing the job. Pedro, how did it go? He actually did pretty well. He made two flubs yesterday. One, during the afternoon, he referred to President Zelensky as President Putin and then caught himself, and Zelensky made a joke about it. The second thing he did during the press conference, Biden referred to Vice President Harris as Vice President Trump. Nobody thinks he thinks Donald Trump is vice president. It was a flub. Biden makes these flubs all the time. It didn't help, right? I mean, these are not flubs. Thank you, Pedro. Thank you, Ava. These are not flubs that help Biden, but, nobody thinks Biden actually thinks, Donald Trump is vice president, right? But it doesn't help him. But overall, I will say, and I mean, you guys know this, I've been criticizing Biden for 2 weeks here. Overall, Biden did and didn't accomplish what he needed. I think Biden got halfway there, which makes things murky. Had Biden screwed up last night, had it been as bad as the debate, Biden would have been toast and he would have been gone. And that would have been the end of Biden. Literally, had he screwed up last night with the press conference like he did at the debate, I think Biden would have been gone. That would have been it for his presidency. Biden was good enough to be better than the debate. Biden came off last night like an old man. Biden came off last night like the old man we already knew him to be, right? Biden came off last night like many of us expected him to be during the debate. We expected him to be an old man, but pretty good, right? That's how he was last night. He was an old man, but pretty good. He was not some vibrant 50-year-old, right? We know that. The problem for Biden is I'm not convinced last night was enough. It was enough to stop him from losing his job immediately, right? Had Biden screwed up last night, he would have been toast. He did enough to basically be where you'd go, like I said, oh yeah, that's the Biden I expected 2 weeks ago. The problem is you still look at him and think, this guy's really old and another 4 years, right? And I mean, again, guys, my loyalties here, right? Donald Trump is a threat to America and a threat to the world, and he's a horrible human being. He's a horrible Christian. I mean, everything about this man. He's anti-American. He's un-American. You know this, right? But having said that, thank you, Jeremy. I tend not to lie. I try to be honest about these things, right? I think Biden is still in a weird zone where he can never be good enough to convince you in 3 years he's going to be really good in 3 years as president, right? But he was good enough to not be the guy we saw at the debates. So I think this leaves it in limbo. I think it leaves it kind of gray, which is better than him doing a job last night that would have killed him entirely, right? He did better than that. Thank you, Family Lavery. But I think it leaves things now confused. And that's not necessarily good, right? So now you're going to see an ongoing battle between forces in the Democratic Party speaking up, and we already saw a little bit of that today, and Biden digging in. So let's see what happens. All right, back to Ukraine. So Biden, Bloomberg. So there is some. Okay, let me start the show by saying I've got some great stories about Russia. I mean, horrific. Russia is in so much trouble. The number of dead and wounded in Ukraine in the last couple of months is horrific. Some news out today, which right? Oh well. But a couple stories on Ukraine itself that really bothered me today that I'm going to share with you. So Bloomberg has an article today about how basically, and it's a little bit of a confusing article, I will say. Thank you, Jay, for the community crown. Little bit of a confusing article. Bloomberg's article basically says the delivery of the F-16s is not going as well as hoped. The problem is the article is confusing. I will read you parts of it. It's not exactly clear what they're talking about. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Charles. What I mean is they raise concerns about the F-16s coming, but they're not new concerns. They're concerns about training, concerns about the runways, right? Thank you, Jeremy, Charles, and Steve for the gifts. Concern about the runways and Russia bombing the runways. These are things we already knew. Yet the article was presenting it as though there is a new, greater concern about the F-16s. And it's very weird. Let me read this to you, okay? The move to send warplanes, a much hyped element of this week's NATO summit in DC, has been bedeviled by delays, questions around spare parts, and a language barrier between Ukrainian pilots and their foreign trainers, according to people familiar with the matter, which means some Biden administration officials went public and went to the media and decided to make it look bad for Ukraine. Not very helpful. Planners also worry that the country doesn't have enough runways, and those it does have are vulnerable to Russian attacks. The result is that Ukraine may be able to field a squadron of F-16s, anywhere from 15 to 24 jets, well short of the 300 its leaders have called for, according to one of the people. Another expert said Kyiv expects to get 6 F-16s this summer. Remember, one of the things I told you guys was we heard that there are F-16s already being shipped to Ukraine right now. But I said, how many, right? How many and when are the other planes coming? That's my concern. So listen to this. Another expert said Kyiv expects to get 6 F-16s this summer and up to 20 by the end of the year. Now, my suspicion is 20 means a total of 20. Again, this is very poor writing, but I will say, I get really annoyed when people who write for big publications don't write well. Up to 20, I'm assuming means up to 20 total, not up to 20 more. But, you know. A senior NATO official listed 3 main issues weighing on planners' minds. First, the planes must be reconfigured depending on the task, such as reconnaissance or combat. Second, Ukraine doesn't have many long, high-quality runways required for the F-16s or shelters to protect them from Russian attack. Third, the logistics of supporting the plane are complex. Who the hell knows? Another NATO official noted that Ukraine is trying to achieve in a matter of months what usually takes 3 to 4 years. Yeah. No shit, Sherlock. I mean, we know that. Having said that, Ukraine has astounded us from the beginning of the war, and I'm not saying that as a Ukraine fan, like, oh my God, but from the beginning of the war, Ukraine has pulled things off that we didn't think they could pull off, right? Thank you, McDowell. So I don't really buy the it normally takes years. Ukraine can't do it in a year. Who knows, right? Maybe they can, maybe they can't. In any case, so that article was not great. Another article that was not great today was from the Telegraph, the British paper. The Brits are vacillating on whether Ukraine can or can't use British cruise missiles to fire into Russia. This is such a bizarre story. I will say, I don't know that Callum is with us tonight. Callum, are you with us tonight? Because I was going to ask you about this. I'm going to message Callum too. Shoot, I was going to ask you about this. Because now I'm writing him on my bad keyboard. So instead of saying you around, it's saying you. Oh, he is there. On the show, have question. Okay. All right. I'm sending as soon as, oh, there he is. There you are. Okay. So here's my question, Callum. I sent you an article. I don't know if you got to see it. Callum's former British military. Listen to this. The Telegraph is reporting today that the British Prime Minister came out and said, I didn't mean to suggest that Ukraine had permission to use British Storm Shadow cruise missiles to fire into Russia. That's not true, right? He said that, hang on, it's very weird. He says the position of the British government has not changed. Wait, let me see this here. Had not changed. He was not loosening restrictions. Bottom line here is, I thought this was a situation where, and this is for Callum, who's former British military, I thought the Ukrainians could already use Storm Shadow cruise missiles to fire into Russia if necessary. Thank you, Leah. Thank you, Hannah. Sandria, Blue Zone. Hannah again. I thought, therefore, the British Prime Minister this week saying the Ukrainians could use Storm Shadow cruise missiles to fire into Russia was simply the new government saying we have not changed our policy. Well, now the Prime Minister is saying, I didn't give permission for them to do that. We're not changing. Get this. We're not changing our policy. They don't have permission. And Callum just said the same thing. They have done it in the past, and they can and they have. Right. Previously, they did fire, and previously they had permission to fire into Russia. The new Prime Minister is now saying, our policy has not changed. Ukraine does not have permission, according to the Telegraph today. This is totally freaking bizarre. And Britain pre-programs the missiles for Ukraine. Okay. But you know what I mean? Like, this doesn't make any sense what's going on. I think this is not helpful. This is a gaffe, I would say. This is kind of a mistake from the new British Prime Minister because it makes them look a little clueless. It also makes it look confusing. It makes it look like they're back. It makes them look confused. B, it makes them look like they're backing off. This makes no sense. I mean, Dave is saying UK always give permission. Guys, I'm telling you, this is a bizarre story today. Let me see this. Wait. Let me see this. Listen to this. Sources confirmed to the Telegraph that the missiles had not been used this year and stressed that Mr. Zelensky would have to, quote, seek assurances elsewhere before Ukraine could fire the cruise missiles into Russian territory. They added that these assurances were not a done deal. A senior defense source said the situation was more nuanced than Ukraine's president had suggested because Zelensky went public and thanked the Brits. They added that permission, listen to this, they added that permission to launch the strategic missile into Russia would require a sign-off from 3 countries, one of which is the UK. France manufactures the Storm Shadow alongside the UK, and somebody in the comments on TikTok said they thought the third country was Italy. It's not going to happen, a source added when asked if Ukraine will fire Storm Shadows into Russia. I am telling you, something bizarre is going on here. Thank you, Tarad. This makes no sense whatsoever. It makes absolutely no sense. I don't know what's going on. As I said, I brought this article up just to sort of tell you guys, not to mention, Ukraine wants to fire into Russia with a Storm Shadow, and they've got to get permission from 3 different people, 3 different countries. I mean, that's insane. That's absolutely insane. Anyway, you get it. You get it. All right. Bash Brannigan is asking a super chat question. What can F-16s do that drones can't? Anyway, done with the, well, actually, okay. That's always a question for you guys. Well, actually, Bash, I think that's too general of a question. There's a ton of things, even I know there's a ton of things F-16s can do that drones can't. But do people want to maybe, one of the defense guys, Callum or somebody else want to weigh in? What, generally speaking, would you use a drone for? And what, generally speaking, would you use an F-16 for if you're Ukraine? Okay. Now, I can tell you right now, drones are used to go after Russian oil facilities inside Russia. They're using that a lot for that. That's one of the most famous uses the Ukrainians are doing. The Ukrainians will not have permission necessarily to use F-16s to fire at Russian oil facilities, for example. Ya is saying bigger payloads, meaning bigger bombs. So the F-16 can drop much bigger bombs than a drone can. Alex says air-launched missiles. Although, Alex, I think the question Bash is asking is, so what? What would you use an air-launched missile for versus what you would use a drone for, right? So how does it affect the targets, for example, that you might be going after? Anybody want to weigh in on a couple of those, and then we'll move on. I'm looking here. Beep, beep, beep. Chase down cruise missiles. Really? Now that's it. Can an F-16 go after cruise missiles? That's actually very interesting. Right. Okay. But you guys, you've got to, here's the thing. Assume we're all stupid. Okay. For example, Surfa said they've got HARM missiles integrated fully with the F-16s. Nobody knows what that means. Right. What can a HARM missile do? I think I know. HARM missiles are probably for taking out radar and stuff. But what would a HARM missile do that you wouldn't do with a drone, right? That's the question here. What's the target that drones typically would go after, and what's the target an F-16 would go after? Or not even target. What's the mission an F-16 might do that a drone would not be able to do? Okay. So we're going to look at a few more things. Fly in contested airspace, but why? Right? I'm also a lawyer, by the way, so we're trained to ask like these questions. So what? Why do I care if you can fly in contested airspace? A little more here. Greater explosive power. Yep, we talked about that. Keep Russian planes further away. Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. So the F-16s potentially could pose a threat to Russian bombers and other Russian fighters so that they might have to keep them farther away. Whereas a drone isn't going to pose any threat. And if the Russian bombers are farther away, it's harder for them to potentially hit Ukrainian targets. Maybe there's certain weapons they can't use, etc. Okay. Oh, that's good. My Rhino says on YouTube, drones are a one-time attack, which is true. Well, typically, drones they come and they've got a bomb inside of them and they go off. Now, some drones can drop grenades and things, but they typically blow up and that's it. Whereas an F-16 will have missiles on it and the missiles fire and it comes back and gets more missiles. All right. F-16s can target cruise missiles. That's interesting. I guess I didn't fully realize that. That's very interesting. Okay, F-16s can target cruise missiles. Drones can't. F-16s have a larger range than drones, Julian says. Interesting. But true, F-16s can be more easily destroyed to some degree. They're maybe a greater risk. Exactly. Harm missile would be used to prosecute a sudden appearance of a radar system. So what JT is saying over on TikTok, for example, is the F-16s have harm missiles, which are, I want to say it's anti-radar missile. I always forget what the AR is, but I think it is. But basically, they're missiles that as soon as the Russians turn on a radar, the F-16, no, even more complicated than this, because you guys have explained this to me before, but even more complicated. But as soon as the Russians turn on a radar, the F-16s can blow it up, right? Anti-radar missiles, exactly. High-speed anti-radar, that's what the H is. Okay, thank you, JT. They can blow up the radar. Drones, I mean, a drone, you'd have to like fly a drone really slowly, right? To get to the radar, I mean, good luck. And at that point, the radar's already blown up your plane. Whereas an F-16 is like, boom, and can take them out. So that's a big deal too. Check signal. Okay, Callum wrote a little bit on signal here. F-16s can provide air superiority, allowing appropriate and substantial cover for ground forces. Okay, let me explain what that means too. What Callum means is F-16s can basically control the airspace, which makes it safer for everybody on the ground. Because if F-16s are keeping the skies safe, you're not going to have Russian helicopters or other Russian planes coming in and bombing the troops, bombing tanks, things like that, right? So the F-16s make it safer for the ground troops. Allowing advances further past the Russian front line. Things such as bunker busters and anti-radar missiles are also a significant benefit. Okay, that was helpful. Thank you, Marsha, for the gift, by the way. Yeah, Ash raises a good point, too. You can crash a drone and not lose a pilot. So basically saying the drones being unmanned, well, drones being unmanned overall, right? You can train drone operators, but it's not like training an F-16 pilot, which we already know. That takes a year longer, right? Okay, very helpful. Thank you, guys. I hope that answered your question, Bash. I like sort of crowdsourcing this stuff with you guys because a lot of you do know. I always say, I know the foreign policy and I know the Washington policy. I am not a defense expert. So on sort of the weapon system stuff, I rely on you guys. Very interesting. Okay. True, F-16s can't be hijacked and taken control of by the enemy, whereas drones, we do worry about the electronic interference and all of that. Very true. All right, let's move on a little bit here. So F-16. So listen to this about the F-16s. So the same bullshit with the F-16s is happening. That's happening with the cruise missiles. So we talked earlier about the cruise missiles, right? By the way, Kiwi, thank you for subscribing, or somebody, thank you for giving Kiwi a gift subscription, since TikTok never tells me which it is, but thank you either way. So we talked earlier about how there's this weird story out now about British cruise missiles, and maybe the Ukrainians don't have permission to fire them into Russia. The same thing now with F-16s. Listen to this. This is from Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, being reported in, I think, the Kyiv Independent. The permission for Ukraine to strike inside Russia with Danish-supplied F-16s will, quote, depend on the circumstances, according to the Danish Prime Minister. Copenhagen previously indicated that its F-16s can be used by Kyiv to hit targets in Russia within the rules of war. Today, when asked by a Radio Free Europe reporter in Washington, the Danish Prime Minister said, you cannot put that question and expect simple answers. Well, okay, really? There is a simple answer. Yes, the Ukrainians can use the F-16 to fire into Russia, right? You cannot expect a simple answer because it all depends on the circumstances. It has to be according to international law. First of all, that's a bullshit answer. Thank you, Marsha, David, and Carla. Everything Ukraine does has to be within international law, right? What a bullshit answer to say, well, you know, when they use the F-16s, they've got to follow international law. Okay, again, duh. That's just a stupid answer. But it is possible. Okay, so he goes, it's not clear that they can use them to hit inside Russia. It depends. But it's possible to reach targets outside Ukraine, yes. So he says, it's possible that they could go after targets outside of Ukraine, but it's not clear they can. It depends. Okay. Thank you, Ernie. Thank you, Family Lavery. Let me just tell you, I know about life in general. I know about foreign policy, and I'm going to guess you defense guys and gals are going to agree with me that on defense, it's the same thing. If you don't have clarity of the mission, good luck accomplishing the mission, okay? If you tell the Ukrainians, well, You can use the F-16 sometimes, but not others. But honestly, it depends. Come to us each time you plan to do it, and we'll tell you yes or no. Well, what if there's like a Russian fighter jet crossing the border or something, right? And the Ukrainians go after it and it goes into Russian airspace. The Ukrainians can't fire into Russian airspace without calling the Americans or the Danes first and saying, well, hi, there's a Russian fighter jet getting away from us. I can't enter Russian airspace and it's flying away. Could you please give me permission, Denmark and America? And of course, right? And not to mention, how is this pilot getting on the phone with Denmark and America when he's in his fighter jet chasing the Russian jet? I mean, he's not going to. The plane's going to get away. Thank you, Nicola, for the gift. Is this insane? I mean, this is insane, guys. This is, frankly, this is the same thing that happened when we all started saying the Ukrainians could fire across the border with some of the other weapons. And the Ukrainians were already saying, like, it's not entirely clear what the rules are, right? Like, what? This just boggles my mind. Thank you, Maddie. Absolutely boggles my mind. It's now, mind you, Alan says, and somebody else had said over here on TikTok, it could be plausible deniability. Ernie says easier to beg forgiveness than ask permission. It was Esnu. Esnu said they plausible deniability, meaning maybe the Ukrainians do have permission to do this, but we don't want to be responsible. So we don't want them saying publicly, thank you, Annie. Thank you, Annette, for the gifts there. We don't want to say publicly, oh yeah, we told you can attack within Russia. We want to say, well, it really depends. So that if Ukraine does it and it's embarrassing what they do, we could go, wow, we never told them they could do that. So maybe that's it. I hope that's it, because this feels very confusing and kind of screwed up, right? Thank you, Family Lavery. Thank you, Annie. There's more news. Okay, so now let's get to the good news. Horrific new Russian casualty numbers in Ukraine. Thank you, Annie, for the gifts. As always, guys, please keep the gifts coming. I do this full time. I do it for free. Your gifts quite literally pay my bills. So please keep it coming. This is how I'm able to do the show. I hate asking this stuff. You know that. But this is quite literally my job, and nobody pays me except you guys, and I'm not rich. So thank you. Thank you, Carla. Listen to this. British Ministry of Defense today on Twitter. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Kevin, by the way. I see gifts coming in too now. Thank you, Boomer. Boomer. I feel like I'm Battlestar Galactica. Boomer. Hey, Bill. Thank you. You as well. Family Lavery. So this is from the British Ministry of Defense, their intelligence outfit on Twitter. They do updates on what's going on in Ukraine with Russia, right? Thank you, Danik. So listen to this. The average daily Russian casualties killed and wounded in Ukraine. Thank you, Tony. Keep in mind, when military people use the word casualty, they mean killed or wounded. So if you say there were 50 casualties, it could be 30 wounded and 20 killed, right? 50 casualties doesn't mean 50 dead. So just keep that in mind when you're dealing with military casualty, because in layman's terms, we always think casualty means killed. That's it. In military, means killed or wounded. Thank you, LOF, Hunt, for the rose, and David and Tony. All right, listen to this. So the average daily Russian casualties killed and wounded in Ukraine through May and June increased to conflict highs of 1,200 and 1,100. So basically, the average Russian casualty rate in Ukraine has gone up to about 1,200 per month, okay? 1,200 killed and wounded. Thank you, David, Loff, and Luzma. It gets better. In total, Russia's likely lost, killed, and wounded in the last 2 months, okay? Get this. In the last 2 months, Russia, the British Ministry of Defense assesses that in the last 2 months, Russia likely lost 70,000 troops in Ukraine. 70,000 killed or wounded. But 70,000 troops, guys, that's insane. I did an annual analysis breaking it out for the year. In 1 year, that would be 420,000 casualties. Now, keep in mind, Russia, that's 70,000 casualties in 2 months, okay? To date, thank you, Maureen, to date, the latest estimate of how many casualties Russia had in the first 2 years, let's say, of the war was 500,000 casualties. That was sort of the NATO estimate. 2 years or maybe 2 years and 3 months into the war, 500,000 casualties. This is 70,000 casualties in 2 months. This is 420,000 casualties in a year. Previously, they had 250,000 casualties in a year. This would bump them to 420,000 in a year. 70,000 casualties in 2 months. Now, again, it's casualties, which means killed and wounded, or killed or wounded, right? So it's not just killed, but still, these are crazy numbers, absolutely crazy numbers. Let me go on here. By the way, you can, and once again, we've got more Russian trolls. I see you, Russia. Goodbye, Russia. You can always tell the Russian trolls, for example, because it's the non sequiturs. They say stuff that might be okay during other topic discussions, but when they bring stuff up that has absolutely nothing to do with the conversation, that's when you know they're a troll. Okay, 70,000 is horrific. Let me go on here. The uptick in losses, this is from British military intelligence. A little bit more here. And we love the goat. What else we got here? Elizabeth, thank you for the gift as well. Good question. Invoke says, how many Russians died in Afghanistan? Okay. I don't want somebody who knows the answer to answer. Somebody who isn't sure, guess how many troops Russia lost killed in Afghanistan in 10 years. Russia invaded Afghanistan like 1979. It went on for 10 years. Did not go well for them at all. They finally had to pull out after 10 years. How many Russian troops died in Afghanistan in 10 years? Now, I want to tell you too, Russia lost so many troops in Afghanistan in 10 years that it was a huge crisis for the government, and it helped bring down the Soviet government. Okay? That's how many died. In 10 years, Russia lost 14,500 men in Afghanistan killed. That's it. 14,500 killed. So almost 15,000 in 10 years, guys. In Ukraine, the estimate is they probably have 100 to 150,000 dead at this point, easy. And that's frankly being generous, meaning conservative in terms of that estimate. Thank you, Bryce. In 2 years, they easily lost 100,000 to 150,000 men dead. Afghanistan, they lost, what would that be? 1,400 a year killed. And that was enough to bring down the Soviet Union. It was considered so horrific. So very interesting what's going on with all of this, right? Absolutely amazing. So more here. British Ministry of Defense also says Russia's casualty rate will likely continue to average above 1,000 a day over the next 2 months, which is fabulous. So great news. It does not mean that Russia is going to cave anytime soon, but these are horrific casualty numbers for Russia. Now, Ukraine, of course, has its own casualties too, but hey, Ukraine's the one being attacked here. I mean, obviously, Ukraine, when you're defending yourself, you're going to lose people. But if you're taking that many of the enemy with you too, that's huge. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tony. A little bit of sip of water, and there's more news. Oh, Chip. How do you say that in Russian, Chip? Bye, Chip. Bye-bye. Our Russian troll Chip is going, that's horse shit. That's bullshit. It hurts, doesn't it? It hurts. I know. You decided to invade your neighbor. He punched you back. And now you lost 500,000 men, and you're losing, and you lost actually 500,000. That would put us up to 600,000 men at this point. Sorry. Reuters confirmed the report. You're going to love this. Chip is going to love this story too. So Reuters confirmed CNN's report that the Russians tried to kill a German industrialist. The Russians had a hit out on the head of Germany's top defense contractor, Rheinmetall, a big defense producer. They produce a lot of artillery and munitions for tanks, I believe. Really huge. I mean, huge. Rheinmetall is a huge company. It'd be like Lockheed Martin here in America or something, right? And the Russians decided they were going to kill the guy. The German who runs the company, they were just going to kill him because his company helps Ukraine, and the Russians wanted to harm the West's ability to help Ukraine. So the Russians, and by the way, U.S. intelligence found that the Russians didn't just plan to kill the German head of the company, right? Thank you, Marcia. They planned to kill industrialists across Europe. The Russians had a hit list of corporate CEOs across Western Europe, that they were going to kill. Okay, and the Americans caught it. The Americans shared the information with the Germans, and the Germans were able to stop the plot. Now, as an aside, Donald Trump has promised that he's going to cut back this kind of information sharing. The only reason the Germans were able to stop the plot is because America shared its intelligence. Trump's advisors came out 2 days ago and said that Donald Trump doesn't believe we should be sharing intelligence with the Europeans, our allies, and wants to cut that back. You can try to figure out why it is that Donald Trump would want to harm America's allies and help America's enemies, because not providing intelligence to the Europeans literally helps Russia kill Europeans. Again, you can do, and I mean, I say this for the Trump supporters out there too, because they get pissed every time we bring this up, but you need to do some real thinking about why you're voting for somebody who wants to cut back on the intelligence we share with our allies in Europe. There is no good explanation. There is no pro-American explanation. There's no good explanation of why anybody would do that unless, frankly, you work for the enemy. A little more here. Poland is considering downing Russian missiles over Ukraine. This is an interesting story. It's not a done deal, but the Poles are talking publicly about whether they should shoot down missiles that are flying over Western Ukraine and heading for Poland. Some Russian missiles in the past have crossed into Polish territory. The Polish government says they're worried because in order to shoot down, and this happened in Ukraine too, in order to shoot down the Russian missiles, you got to intercept them. But once you intercept the missile, it blows up. Well, it doesn't vaporize, right? It blows up. And then the Russian missile and frankly, the missile, Patriot or whatever, that intercepted it break into pieces and fall on the ground. Well, when it falls on the ground, it can kill people. In Kyiv, I remember a few months ago, somebody was killed, I think, on their balcony because they were sort of standing looking up and a Russian drone or whatever was flying over and it got intercepted. And the damage, the detritus, whatever, the refuse fell down and killed them. Really, really scary stuff. So what the Poles are saying is maybe the Poles will, and the Ukrainians said, please do. The Poles said, maybe we will consider blowing up these Russian missiles if they're heading for Polish territory, because otherwise we don't want to blow them up over Poland and possibly risk Polish lives. No decisions made, but I thought that was interesting. I suspect Biden will have a conniption fit over that. Kyiv Independent says Russia media reports that Russia plans to cut off access to YouTube in a few months. The Russians are basically upset because YouTube is like the last bastion of free speech. Russia's a dictatorship. I mean, Russia is a dictatorship. Thank you, Mustard. And the Russians don't like that any truth gets out. And no dictator likes the truth. And the Russians are upset because, look, I'm on YouTube right now. The Russians would want my show to be censored. They want literally the story is any criticism of the war, of Russia's war in Ukraine, Russia wants censored because Russia has a law that says, because it's a dictatorship, Russia has a law that says you can't criticize Russia. So Russia told YouTube, you have to censor any content that criticizes Russia. And YouTube went, screw you. So the Russians are talking now in a couple of months about literally taking out taking YouTube off entirely in Russia, which is amazing. Again, oh, well, sorry. Oh, Pablo, you're gonna see who I censor right now, Pablo. Woo! All right. Anyway, two more stories. Ukraine's GDP, which is the economy, grew more than 4% in 6 months, which is actually very good. Final story here I meant to mention the other day, and I didn't get to it, but I'm going to mention it here. Oh, hey, Tony, over midnight in Norway. Feel free to go to bed if you need to. I know it's always late for you guys. I appreciate you joining us. Listen to this. This is a story from the other day. I normally don't talk about this idiot, but it's important in this context. So thank you, Vicky. This is, lots of trolls tonight. Oh, yeah, Dave. Well, tonight, the Russians have been a little freaked out this week. Frankly, they intentionally blew up a children's hospital in Ukraine. They killed a bunch of children on purpose this week, children with cancer, just to add to it. They tried to assassinate the head of a German company because they didn't like him, because they didn't like the company helping Ukraine. So they just decided to kill him. There's a lot of bad stories. 70,000 troop casualties in just 2 months in Ukraine of Russians. I mean, there's a lot of bad stories. And the Russian trolls always come when we talk about this stuff. It so freaks them out. Thank you, Sean. Listen to this story. Mods, get ready. Russian trolls, you're going to love this story. So the Russians admitted this week, thank you, Sean, that they don't plan to abide by any peace treaty with Ukraine. The Russians admitted this week that if Ukraine agrees to a peace treaty, Russia will violate it and invade Ukraine again in order to take the entire country. Now, thank you, Maureen. I would say if you're interested in peace, perhaps you shouldn't go telling people that you plan to violate the peace treaty, right? Because that would tell me maybe we shouldn't have a peace treaty with Russia because they already admitted they're going to break it. Thank you, Maureen. Listen to this. This is wild. So Dmitry Medvedev, who's our favorite, he's, as I've said, a bit of he's kind of known to be a drinker. The intelligence folks believe he has a drinking problem. He goes kind of crazy. He is, by the way, Russia's former president. He's not nobody. He's the former president of Russia. He is the chairman of Russia's Security Council. He's a top advisor to Putin. He is an important member of the Russian government. He admitted this week that Russia will absolutely positively violate any peace treaty it does with Ukraine and invade again. Okay? So get this. Oh, chill. You're leaving too. Listen to this. So this was via Kyiv Independent. I think this could have been Sky News. Anyway, I saw the story yesterday. Listen to this. Dmitry Medvedev, former Russian president and now deputy chairman of the Russian Security Council, said Russia will drive a long steel nail into the coffin of Ukraine in the event Ukraine surrenders much of its territory to Russia. Putin had been shopping around the proposal that Ukraine give up 4 regions and drop its aspirations to join NATO in return for a ceasefire, a plan deemed absurd by Ukraine and its allies. This reads like it's from Sky News. So Putin has been pushing this peace plan, thank you, love, that just to have a ceasefire, right? Not a peace plan, just to have a ceasefire. Putin said Ukraine has to give up all of its territories in the east, 17% of its country. It has to just hand over to Russia and say it's yours now. Ukraine has to promise to never join NATO. And in exchange, Russia will talk to Ukraine about peace. They won't even agree to peace. Medvedev said that, listen to this. Medvedev said, what if they take the deal and accept it? Right? He says, what will happen if Ukraine accepts Putin's deal? Medvedev says, this will not be the end of Russia's military operation, Medvedev promises. Even after signing the papers and accepting defeat, the remaining part of the radicals in Ukraine, after a regrouping of forces, will sooner or later return to power, inspired by Russia's enemies. So he's saying that he knows, the Russians know, that if they reach a peace deal with Ukraine, even if Ukraine gives up all of its land, they know the Ukrainians are going to rearm themselves, put a bad government in power, and the West is going to make them attack again, okay? Listen to this. And then the time will come to finally crush the reptile, he says, drive a long steel nail into the coffin of the quasi-state. We must destroy the remnants of his bloody legacy and return the remaining lands in Ukraine to the bosom of Russia. Okay? This little SOB says that if Russia reaches a peace treaty with Ukraine, Russia's going to reinvade again and take all of Ukraine. Why would you want to reach a peace deal with the Russians if the former Russian president, who is still a top official in Putin's government, admits that Russia will take the peace deal, use it to rearm itself, and then invade again and take the rest of Ukraine? By the way, this is what I have been saying for 2 years, and a lot of the other experts have been saying, that peace with Russia, how do you reach peace with somebody whose goal is to take your house from you and to kill your family, right? They live to kill your family and they live to take your home. That is their goal, to take your home, right? How do you reach peace with them when all they're going to do is come back next year to try to take your home, because that's what they live for? Russia didn't invade Ukraine because there was a dispute over NATO. Russia didn't invade Ukraine because there was a dispute over the border, right? They invaded Ukraine because the Russians believe that Ukraine is, as Medvedev just said, right, the bosom of Russian land. Return to the bosom. Russia believes that Ukraine is part of Russia. Russia believes, and they've said this at the beginning of the war, that the Ukrainians are not a real nationality. The Russians believe, literally, I saw a Russian official say this at the beginning of the war, that the Ukrainians are confused. They think, this was a Russian official, they think they're an actual nationality. They think they're Ukrainians, but they're really Russians, and they're confused. And Russia's goal in the war is to re-educate the Ukrainians, to inform them of the fact that they're not really Ukrainians, they're really Russians. Guys, and that's what Medvedev just admitted. I mean, it boggles my mind. It boggles my freaking mind. Well, the problem, Romp says, is not the general view. The problem is, it is the view of the government, right? The people running the war is Putin and his government. Putin absolutely wants Ukraine back. Putin absolutely believes that and by the way, most Russians believe too, that the Soviet Union falling apart was a disaster, right? Was absolutely a disaster. Well, you know, it's anyway. Oh my God, these people. Anyway, just to reiterate, since we have Russian trolls today, 70,000 Russian casualties in the last 2 months alone in Ukraine. That's got to hurt, guys. According to the British Ministry of Defense, 70,000 Russian casualties in the last 2 months alone. Yikes. Yeah, the trolls freaked out. Whenever we have really good news about how bad Russia's doing, the trolls really flip out, which is why I enjoy it so much. Also, by the way, I will say too, I do this for the mods because when I bring up the really bad stuff, like reiterating that 70,000 Russian troops were killed or injured in the last 2 months in Ukraine alone, it brings out all the trolls can't help themselves, right? I'm going to get this one myself. Oh, you got him. You beat him before I did. I was going to get him, Poppy. That was one I was looking going, I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him. Anyway. All right. So all the auction items are up now. Woo woo. Thank you, Bob West. We've got all our auction items up. Thank you, Marine. Over on Discord, I do an auction every week, more or less every week, to benefit Ukraine. Half the money goes back to Ukraine for the auctions. Half the money goes to benefit me because I do this full time. That's why I'm always mentioning gifts to you guys and the memberships and things, the subscriptions, because I do this full time. I've been doing it full time since the war broke out. I am not rich. Nobody pays me. I literally pay the bills and I'm able to do this show with your gifts. So please keep them coming. Thank you, Mark, by the way. Case in point for the gift there. But we also do auctions. I will say the auctions don't bring in the auctions bring in okay money. But I enjoy them because it's kind of fun sharing cool Ukrainian stuff. And frankly, it's not bad. I mean, we've probably raised, I don't know, $25,000, $30,000 for Ukraine in the auctions alone, I would say, which is still something. I mean, we've raised 150,000 otherwise. Thank you, Epsilon. Thank you, Lavery. But a few of the items we've got, I'm not going to unwrap it now. There's pictures and videos of all of these items over on Discord where you can see the auction items. Thank you, Marine. Thank you, Jan Thomas. You can find our Discord where the auctions are in the profile on TikTok. Look at the Linktree link, click it, and you'll see a list of links come up. Discord is the top one. Click it. For you guys on YouTube, go to the description of the show, and there's an auction link for Discord right in there. Some playing cards from Ukraine. They are playing cards devoted to the various explosives the Ukrainian army is using to cause those 70,000 Russian casualties that Russia suffered in the last 2 months alone. Thank you, Danik. I can't show you these on TikTok because TikTok will get upset because it's pictures of bombs and stuff. They're really cool. James got them in Ukraine. James also got in Ukraine a very cool fridge magnet that shows the Ukrainian trident. But what I like about this one is it's the Ukrainian trident, the symbol of Ukraine. But when you get closer, you realize the trident actually says the name Kharkiv, which is Ukraine's second largest city that James was working in. There's a H, a R, and a V, but each letter looks like it's the top of a trident. So I think that's really cool as far as fridge magnets go. A few other things. Actually, very cool wrist bracelet. I think this may be one of the cooler bracelets we've had. It's black leather. It shows a Ukrainian trident, but what I like about it is it's blue and gold, which is the Ukrainian colors, but the colors are muted. Honestly, it looks like a mood ring. It's not a mood ring, but the colors are the colors you would see in a mood ring, which I think is totally cool. I like this stuff because I think it's adjustable. I think they're very, it's masculine or feminine. It's very unisex. That's mine, says Snow Kevin. Aren't they cool? But again, I love the coloring too. Like I said, it's almost mood ring coloring. You guys can see. Anyway, this is over there. Now, I will tell you, there's a number of VIP auctions. The VIP auctions are for the monthly subscribers, TikTok, and I'm sorry, for everybody who's a monthly subscriber anywhere that isn't TikTok, because TikTok's link is broken. TikTok is not sending the information to Discord so that we know you're a subscriber. I put a ticket into TikTok. I'm going to put another one in. I think I'm going to do it every few weeks to TikTok just to keep reminding them, because until they get it fixed, there's no way for you guys to bid in the VIP section, but you can bid in the rest. Let me look. Oh, you know what? I'll show you the t-shirt and we'll leave it here. I'll show you the t-shirt and then we'll leave here. Okay. All right. Mustard, give it a rest. Okay. You need to chill tonight. So here's the t-shirt. The t-shirt's very cool. Vlad had these made for the volunteers. These are the volunteers that are making the camouflage nets. We've raised a lot of money to pay for camouflage nets being made by volunteers in the Kharkiv area for the Ukrainian military. These are nets that they cover tanks with, HIMARS, you name it. We actually auctioned off. I got to see if we can get more nets. They're hard to ship out of the country, frankly. But because, the Ukrainian government kind of says, why are you shipping camouflage nets out of the country? But we've auctioned a number of those off. So these are t-shirts Vlad had made for the volunteers making the camouflage nets. It says on there, Harkovu Mir, which is the name of the charity organizing it. It's got a picture of a HIMARS, a camouflage net in green over the HIMARS, and then below it, it says Maskuvalna Sotnya, which Vlad said means masking 100, which is a nickname Vlad gave for the volunteers, the 100 volunteers that made the nets. What's neat about this is Vlad only made about 67 t-shirts. So This is truly a one-in-a-kind t-shirt. You're not going to find this elsewhere. That is up for auction. There's 2 of these. I'm going to auction another, I'll auction the other one later, but you can pick the size. There's a large and a 2XL. So a large and an XXL. The large fits me nicely. I will say typically I am between a medium and a large. So the fact that the large fits me but is a little big, I would say this large is a slightly small large. I would call it a large minus. It's not a medium. It's a large minus, okay? Which I would trust the XXL to be the same. So you pick, you guys figure it out. But anyway, I won't show you the rest of the stuff right now, but you can go check out all the auctions over on Discord. As I said, half the money goes back to Ukraine, half the money goes to support me. And it's just a lot of fun. Like I think it's fun auctioning this stuff off, Anyway, all right, guys, let's talk. Let's talk. All right. There are only 4 auctions under VIP, Jens. Yes. I don't always put an equal number because some of the items, for example, are items we've done before. And if I put them under VIP, some of the trivets and stuff we've done before, if I put them under VIP, I'm afraid they won't sell, to be honest. You tried to donate, but the link didn't work. I'm not sure what that means, Incognito. It depends what you mean. Donate where? All right. I know we could see about making more shirts. I'd have to see. We'd have to see. Maybe we can. I'll talk to Vlad about it actually, because Vlad organized the he had the t-shirts made actually. I should talk to him. That would be kind of interesting. The problem is, of course, they weren't cheap. I mean, Vlad paid for these. Actually, Vlad paid for the t-shirts out of his own money, and they weren't cheap to make. Like they weren't bad, but I want to say that I forget what they cost. They might have cost $15 a shirt actually, which is not cheap when you're making it and made, and then it had to be shipped from another country. And then of course he shipped it here to me in the States. I had a merchant store, but it closed up. Represent got sold to those crazy people who do those videos. When movie stars do the video hellos for you, Represent, the t-shirt shop, got sold to them and they closed all our stores. So I've got to find yet another t-shirt shop. Unfortunately, what do you do? All right. Anyway, guys, so let's hang out and talk now. What's going on? Thank you, Linka, for many gifts. Make sure I didn't miss any other gifts here. I think that was it. You guys did a little pause in the gifts. Jay sent several gifts. Thank you. More gifts from Jay. Confetti. Danik. I may have seen Danik. Jen Thomas. Oh, and then a number of you. Then Maureen, Family Lavery, Mark. I think I got you guys. Okay, I think I got you guys. But they're all up now. So there's like 4 under VIP and 5 under regular. My Cash App is in. Thank you for asking, by the way, not right. All of my links for donations are in my profile on TikTok. Click the link that's in my profile that says Linktree, and it'll bring up, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, even Patreon, however you want. All right. Yes, truth hurts. We talked about Poland considering intercepting missiles over Ukraine. Yes, the Polish government basically has said it's considering intercepting Russian missiles over Ukraine if those missiles go into Western Ukraine and look like they're heading for Poland. Poland will consider shooting them down. The only thing is, Poland said they're considering adopting a policy of shooting them down, but it's not clear yet. So thank you, John Smith, for the gift. Thank you, Danik. Linka again. So it hasn't been decided yet. So that's the only thing. What else we got? Rheinmetall. I know Rheinmetall should. Now, Pedro raises a good point. Rheinmetall should retaliate by producing even more weapons. He's talking about the story that the Russians tried to kill the head of one of Germany's probably top weapons manufacturer. It would be like killing the head of Lockheed Martin here in America, or Northrop Grumman or something, right? They just decided to kill the guy because he's a big German CEO, and he runs an arms company, but the big German arms maker, and they sell, they provide weapons to Ukraine. So the Russians thought, let's kill him. They also plan to kill a number of other European CEOs. They were going to kill the top CEOs across Europe of arms makers, guys, right? And they got caught because the Americans found out about it, intelligence, and gave the Germans the info. What somebody was just saying here is Rheinmetall ought to respond by saying, we're going to make even more weapons. It's not clear they have the capacity to make more weapons, but actually, thank you, John Smith. What I was going to say, though, is it raises the larger question of we need to make Russia pay a price every time it crosses a line. Russia has been doing these kind of assassinations and things for 10 years now, easily. The U.S. troops, U.S. military bases in Europe had to go on high alert a week ago because the Russians basically put out a hit on American troops. They were planning terrorist attacks against American troops. That's insane. That is an act of war. The only reason Russia's willing to do it is because they know we don't want to go to war, and therefore we won't do anything, or we won't do anything sufficient in response, so it's worth it for the Russians to do it. We need to make it clear to the Russians, every time they do that, like the Rheinmetall stuff happens, we turn and we go, okay, you know those ATACMS missiles we give Ukraine that we said Ukraine can't use long distance? Now they can. Would you like to F around again, Russia? Oh, you tried to kill the president of Rheinmetall, Germany says. Well, guess what? Now we're going to give Ukraine those Taurus cruise missiles that we, the Germans, have set up until now that we won't give the Ukrainians because we don't want to piss off the Russians. You tried to kill the head of a German company. We are now going to give Ukraine those cruise missiles. This is the problem. Is NATO doesn't do this. The Germans don't do this. The Americans don't do this. We don't make Russia pay a price every time Russia crosses a line of decency. Guys, treat them like a 3-year-old child, right? If they're going to act up, take away their dessert, give them a timeout. Russia needs a timeout every time it does this and say, okay, Putin, you're going to sit in the corner for 5 minutes and Ukraine's going to get Taurus cruise missiles. Would you like to say anything else? And the next word he says, you go, okay, now Ukraine's getting this. Right? Now they're getting permission to use the F-16s inside Russia. Would you like to open your mouth again, Mr. Putin? And you keep going again and again and again. Thank you, Mama. But we don't, which is why the Russians feel comfortable doing these acts of war. Pen says, did you hear that Australia arrested 2 Russian spies working in the ADF? By the ADF, ADF. I don't know what ADF is. Is it Australian Defense Forces, maybe? They logged into their workstations from Russia and got arrested after returning back into Australia. Wow. I did not hear that. Wow. Having tiramisu for lunch? Good for you. Good for you. Anyway. What else we got here? Thank you, Annie, for the gifts. Australian Defense Forces. That's what I figured. Thank you, Julian. Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing. Well, at first I saw ADF and I was thinking, what is it? AfD, right? The sort of German far right crazy party. It's not Allianz für Deutschland or whatever it is. And I don't speak German, but AfD. What else we got going on here? Man, hold on. Oops. What else we got, guys? New poll by NRP. Nicholas says, has Biden up 2 against Trump? So alternative for Deutschland. Thank you, Zerpachi. I knew it wasn't Allianz. I knew it was something else. The important point to remember regarding, remember we cover American elections too, because, I am a political guy in Washington, D.C., and it's the big issue of the year. Hey, Brian, have a good night. With American presidential elections, the thing you have to remember is national polls don't always tell you what's going on. Thank you, Maureen. Unfortunately, we have a very screwed up system of electing presidents in this country. Thank you, John Smith. And whoever wins the popular vote does not win the presidency. It doesn't work that way. Hillary Clinton won the election by 3 million votes in 2016 against Donald Trump. She had 3 million more votes. She lost. Okay. Al Gore won the election by 500,000 votes against George Bush in the year 2000. He lost. The polls tell you something when you do national polls, but they don't tell you enough because you need to know state by state. Because twice in the last 20 years, Democrats won the national election and they lost. So thank you, adventurers. So my only caveat is, of course, it's better for Biden to be 2 ahead of Trump in a national poll. It also potentially shows a trend going up, which is good. But you always want to pay attention to the state-by-state polls. And at least up until now, Biden has been in trouble in the state-by-state polls. But let's see what happens. And especially in the last couple of days, the state-by-state polls have moved towards Trump, which is not good. Thank you, Maureen. It's kind of ridiculous, Joe. Yeah, we believe that land matters. It's insane. We're literally giving land a vote. It's crazy. But I think it's kind of nuts, right? Because people, well, basically, it's a crazy long thing, but people who live in small states go, it's not fair. Small meaning no population. I live in a state with no population. Why don't I get more of a say in the election? Because you're in a state with no population, right? Like if there's no population per se, your vote isn't much because there's none of you to vote, right? Like that's how it works. I mean, but nonetheless, we give smaller states more of a vote because we feel bad for them. And it's idiotic because people can live wherever they want. It drives me, as far as a democracy, it drives me crazy. It drives me absolutely crazy. If you live in a small state, you have just as much impact on the election as, Alaska. You've got just as much impact as anybody else. Thank you, Tarad. Each citizen has one vote, right? But the fact that there's only like 500,000 of you in Alaska, or 750,000 now maybe, right? And the country's 330 million, I got news for you. You don't have a big impact on the election because there's only 330,000 of you. Or 750,000 of you, It's like, actually, it's bullshit anyway, because actually Alaskans have just as much of an impact. They have one vote. Each of us has one vote. Nobody has a bigger impact. Well, if we did it just by vote, nobody would have a bigger impact. Each person would have one vote. It's not like you move to California and suddenly your vote shouldn't count as much because California is big. Each American still gets one vote. That's how you pick a leader. It's ridiculous anyway. It's just ridiculous. Anyway. Oh, and then we have super delegates. Arctic Legacy says, yeah, it's crazy what our system is. Our system is absolutely crazy. Sobo, I don't know. Sobo asked, at what point do Russian casualty numbers become unsustainable? This is Marion. Marion's probably not here tonight. She popped in last night. If you pop in at night tonight, Marion, she often watches this at night. My friend Marion, that's one of the questions I'm not understanding is you get to the Soviet Union in the year 1980s and 14,500 Russian soldiers killed, helped bring down the Soviet Union over 10 years because it was considered so horrific. Now you've got 600,000 Russian casualties, probably 200,000 Russian dead in Ukraine in just 2 years or 2.5 years, and it's considered no big deal. But at the same time, Putin's afraid of having a national mobilization because he's afraid people will rise up, right? Like, I just don't, but at the same time, nobody rises up because Russia's the dictatorship and they're all afraid and they all get thrown in jail. I feel like there's something no one's explaining to me about, there seems to be a lingering fear of people rising up in Russia, but at the same time, we're told people don't rise up in Russia. It's a dictatorship. Putin can kill as many people as he wants in Ukraine, right? His own men, and nobody cares. I don't get it. I just don't get it, right? I feel like we're not being told something, Anyway. By the way, remember tomorrow, just a reminder again, tomorrow we've got our weekend show for paid subscribers. So anybody who has SNN next to your name on TikTok, anybody whose name is green on YouTube, join us tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Washington, D.C. or New York City time, where we hang out and have just kind of a special show just for us. And it's nicer. It's a much smaller crowd, and we hang out. Vlad often joins us. Hopefully he'll join us. What else we got? I know, color revolution coming to a Russian town. Seriously. Thank you, user 336. Your name cracks me up. How do you not have a normal name? Or once you get a name, are you stuck with it? I mean, no offense. It's such a troll name. Let's face it. User 3367871003303. But this guy is one of our most prolific gift givers, is always here supporting me. So it just cracks me up that you have a troll name. User 3, you can change it. Why don't you change your name? Although now I know you as user 336, frankly. So if you pick another name, I'm not going to know who you are. But it just kind of makes me laugh. Anyway, it just makes me laugh. I know. No, I mean, it's funny. At this point, it makes me laugh at this point. Jeff Daniels. Yeah, I did Google him finally. Thank you, Maureen, for the gift. Can the war extend to Belarus? I guess I'm not sure what you mean, Computer Fuzzer. I saw your question earlier, but wasn't sure what you mean. I mean, Belarus is a dictatorship that's friends with Russia. They've been helping the Russians in the war, but they haven't gotten directly involved. Belarus does not have a big military. They don't have a very good military. My guess, and the dictator, from what I remember at the beginning of the war, reading up on this, he's a brutal dictator. His hold on power is He needs his military at home to keep his hold on power. If he goes to war in Ukraine and sends all of his troops into Ukraine, who's protecting his dictatorship at home? That's one of the issues. So I'm not sure he wants it. Oh, user 336, that would be good. That would be, did he or no? That would be kind of good. No, I do know it though. I do know it as 3367100. That's very true. But you know how I keep thinking species 8472, frankly. I don't know if you're a Star Trek fan, but every time I see your name and I say 336, I'm thinking species 8472, which actually would be a great name. Wouldn't that be a great TikTok name? Somebody's got to have that name, I would think. Do I think Biden will drop out at some point before the Democratic convention in August? I don't know. What is interesting, though, a friend of mine said the other day that if Biden's going to drop out, it would make sense for him to do it after the Republican convention. So the Republican convention is next week. It's where the Republicans formally announce Trump. It's where Trump announces who his vice president is, and they spend the week attacking Biden, right? If Biden stays at least for another week, thank you, Tracy, Republicans don't know who to go after because they spend next week going after Biden. My guess is they'll probably try to go after Kamala Harris, the VP. Thank you, T-Bone, because they're afraid she might be the nominee. But if it's not one of those two, next week is a loss. I mean, they're going to spend all week going after Biden, and then Biden steps out, and it's Gavin Newsom or somebody, right? So it is a very interesting. I mean, the idea of Biden stepping down scares me in terms of whether the successor can win. But at the same time, it's very interesting in terms of the dynamic because also it gets the age question gone. Even saying Biden was a bad president, I think he a pretty good president, actually. But even if you wanted to accept that, you'd be like, okay, he's not running, right? He's not running. Anyway, Kamala, here's the interesting question. Issa or LSA, depending what your name is, says, do I think Kamala Harris, the VP, can win? The polls say yes. Interestingly enough, all the polls to date, I say all the polling in the last week or so that we've been talking about this shows Kamala Harris doing better in the polls than Biden versus Trump. For example, Biden might be tied or down a point. She beats Trump by like 3 points in a poll that I saw yesterday. She also does better than all the other names being talked about. She does better than Gavin Newsom. She does better than Gretchen Whitmer. So all the other Democrats who might run against Trump. It's very interesting. There's a lot of controversy whether, is she too controversial? Is she too disliked? She's a woman. She's black. Like all of these kind of, obviously black, we know black doesn't matter in principle anymore, right? Obama got elected twice. But I saw a woman today on CNN, an African-American woman, talking about how she likes Kamala Harris. She doesn't want her to run because she thinks America won't elect a black woman. She thinks the Hillary Clinton experience of 2016 showed America will not elect a woman, which I thought was very interesting. But nonetheless, what do the polls show? The polls show she does better than Biden. And she does better than all the other people that are potentially running. Now, here's the wild card. Nobody in America knows who Gretchen Whitmer is, who's one of the other, nobody knows who she is, one of the other possible candidates. Very few Americans know who Gavin Newsom is. I couldn't even tell you Gavin Newsom's policy proposals. I don't know what the hell he believes. I know he's a liberal. I don't know what he believes, and he speaks well, right? Most Americans also don't know Kamala Harris. When she gets known more, will Americans like her more? Will they like her less? Because they still don't. Vice presidents in America, sadly, the vice president is a very ceremonial job. You typically get hidden. And frankly, Biden hid her a lot, which was bad. Thank you, Chazak. And I think part of the reason Biden hid Kamala Harris these last 3 years is he didn't want a vibrant, young, smart person making him look old and not so smart, right? I think. because she didn't get to make an identity for herself. So the question becomes, when people get to know her over the next 4 months, will they like her or will they dislike her? I don't know. That's an interesting wild card. Thank you, Chezek. Well, here's the thing. Sobo says, didn't the poll show Hillary winning? Hillary won, Sobo. She won by 3 million votes. I mean, right. So, I mean, the polls, by the way, were right with Hillary. Look at the polling. That's one of the lessons of that election. The polls were actually correct. She won by 3 million votes. But what happened also was, in the last couple days, you had the FBI intervene, WikiLeaks, all that bullshit, right? So, hey, Combat Footage, good to see you. I think he did hide her, Jen. I think he did. She was out and about, but I don't think he gave her anything substantive to do. Look at Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney under George Bush is when you really had a vice president involved. I think she wasn't in the news. From my taste, I don't think she was in the news at all. I don't think so. Sending her to events nobody cares about means she's not in the news, for my taste. Thank you, Super Hornet. Anyway, what else we got, guys? Beep, 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 beep. Anything else, guys? Excuse me. We're 20 after. I don't. You got nothing. That one guy. 20 after. We still got time. There's a documentary about Cheney. That's interesting. I'm not surprised. Justice Thomas, the blue light special of Supreme Court justices. No. Were there any highlights yesterday from Biden's press conference after I got bored? No. I mean, he was fine. He screwed up Putin's name or Kamala Harris's name, but he even mentioned Ukraine at one point. He talked about, I think I told you guys were still on at this point. He was talking about Putin and how, Putin starts the war in Ukraine, scares the hell out of 1 million Russian men, 1 million Russian men flee the country. And then Biden adds, he goes, 1 million men flee the country. But what's interesting is, among those men, a huge proportion of them were high-tech workers who fled Russia, which hurt their economy significantly. Biden is correct about that. I was kind of impressed that Biden, A, remembered that 1 million men fled Russia when the war started, and B, knew that a high number of those men were high-tech employees. That was interesting to me. Now, foreign policy is his specialty, but there were little details like that where I went, the guy was not the guy we saw at the debate, clearly. But he's still an old man. No, I mean, he's an old man. So it's, as I said, Biden's performance last night put him in a gray zone where it didn't knock him out, but he's never going to be a 50-year-old spry guy. So, I don't know who's going to, if he gets replaced, the logical person, thank you, Maureen, for the gift. The logical person is to replace him with Kamala Harris because she's the vice president. That would cause the least infighting in the Democratic Party. Because Kamala Harris is the vice president, it makes sense, right? She's next up. It makes sense she'd be the nominee, right? It therefore is difficult for Bernie Sanders' people to say it should be our person or somebody of our wing of the party. It makes it hard for Elizabeth Warren's people to say it should be Elizabeth Warren, right? Or Gavin Newsom or Pete Buttigieg. All the people who ran last time, it's very hard for them to say it's not fair that you picked Kamala Harris, right? Because logically, I'm not saying I think she should be the nominee in terms of who's the best to win. I don't know. But logically following the rules, she should be the nominee, which means if she gets it, it's hard for anybody in the party to say, that's not fair. I'm not going to vote, right? But if Kamala Harris doesn't get the nomination, her supporters, possibly blacks, possibly women, say that's not fair, right? And then you give it to Gavin Newsom, and Elizabeth Warren's people go, what about me, right? You give it to Elizabeth Warren. Bernie Sanders people say, what about me? I mean, it opens up, to me, not giving it to Kamala Harris opens up a potential war in the Democratic Party. Giving it to Kamala Harris does not open up a war, but then you've got to decide if you think she can win. But Gretchen Whitmer's the same problem. You took it away from a black woman and gave it to a white woman? I mean, right, there's politically, I could see that being an issue, right? Right? And again, Gretchen Whitmer. Guess who did better than Gretchen Whitmer? Elizabeth Warren. I mean, she didn't do great last time, but Gretchen Whitmer didn't even run. Or she ran, nothing happened, right, last time? So if you're Elizabeth Warren's people, you go, why is Gretchen Whitmer getting this? Why shouldn't Elizabeth Warren get it? Right? She's paid her dues. You get it. I'm just saying, like, she did not run. Okay, I wasn't sure infected, whereas Elizabeth Warren did. So Warren's people are going to say, oh, right, she at least paid her dues. You open up a little bit of a can of worms. Final point though. If you're going to open it up, then you got to do it fair. If you're going to open it up, then you've got to have some way of putting it up for a vote that truly the party isn't involved. I don't know what it is, but that somehow people go, you know what? This is the person who won the vote. They're the one who gets to be the nominee. I don't know. Gunther, watch it. Yeah, I don't know Governor Whitmer well enough. We said Michigan. I kept thinking Minnesota. She's the governor of Michigan. Very strong woman. But I don't know her well enough. Like, I don't know. People like her a lot. She's considered a rising star in the Democratic Party. Michelle Obama's pretty damn smart, you know? But I don't think there's any indication of her wanting to be president. People have talked about it for years, and she's always been like, ugh. Like when you guys say I should run for office, I'm like, ugh, there's no chance in hell. I just don't know whether there's anything in there of any interest. Thank you, Jeremy, for the gift. You know, she was the one that they tried to kidnap. Yeah, Julian. Gretchen Whitmer's the one. I don't know if it was MAGA people. They were certainly crazy Republican gun nuts that they had the kidnapping plot to kidnap her. They were like, were they survivalists? I forget what they were. They were like crazy Republicans. Thank you, Iggy. Gretchen Whitmer. Crazy stuff. You know? Well, I got news for you. Kim Cho says there's no way you'd let Biden run your business. Let's go one step further. There's no way you'd let Donald Trump near your daughter, right? I'm not going to pick somebody as president who I would be afraid would walk into my 13-year-old daughter's room to look at her undressing, which is what Trump did at a beauty contest. I don't have a daughter, but what Trump did at a beauty contest of a bunch of teenagers, okay? Let's just not even pretend like, I mean, let's not even get there, right? Right? You're not going to pick a convicted felon to run your business. You're not, okay? You're not going to pick a man. And by the way, actually, you know who you're not going to pick to run your business? A guy who was just convicted of sexually assaulting a woman. He was just found liable for sexual assault. No business in America is going to hire somebody, period, let alone to run a company who was found guilty of sexual assault in a court just in the last 2 years. Because you would be so liable for everything this person did. But I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, the Trump thing is so freaking bizarre. It's so bizarre. It just kind of boggles my mind. So and for you, obviously for Europeans, it boggles them even more because they're the ones that kind of look at it and go, how is this even possible? You know, hang on a second. I'm looking at this myself now because occasionally I like to add keywords that we're going to block. Hang on. Here it is. Block keywords. Oh, this is going to be fun. We've got a lot of keywords to block. There we go. Hang on here. There we go. Good. I just blocked a keyword. I love doing that. We basically have to block some of the words from the crazy people because it's a way of basically keeping control of the comments so they don't just go nuts. So I just blocked one because I'd forgotten. Thank you, Pizdolis, by the way, and John McKeon. There was in Lamb Chop. There's a word. Thank you, Love My. Actually, I can tell you because now I blocked it. Thank you, Jeremy. One of the words, and again, these are the Russian trolls. These are the or maybe not Russian. Maybe they're Republican, but they're organized trolls because they use the same talking points. Trolls meaning people who are either paid or organized to come disrupt these discussions because they use the word triggered a lot. And it always is bizarre. Like but mind you, it doesn't make sense. Like the person wrote, "You're triggered." That isn't, it doesn't make sense the way he's using it, but they use it a lot. And I kept forgetting to ban the word because nobody's going to use the word triggered in our conversations. We never use it. So it's fine getting rid of it. But anyway, I just remembered it as I saw that. I saw the person's name and the thing and I went, oh, that's right. I was going to block the word. Thank you, Derek. Thank you, John. So thank you, troll. You just got that troll talking point banned. Oh, well, gamer speak. Maybe that's what it is. But also they use words in English inappropriately. I've always told you this. They use something at the wrong time. They like right now saying you're triggered. We're talking about like Gretchen Whitmer and her place in the polls and everything, right? Like that, and Kamala Harris and whether she'd be the best candidate. That's not trigger. That's just incorrect English to think the word trigger fits there. You're reading it off a talking point, and you're not an Anglophone. It's two things. You're not a native English speaker. It could be gamer speech, but you're also not a native English speaker. If you're not even a human being, possibly, maybe AI. Bingo. What Scarlett said, English isn't their first language. That's the second thing. That's the second thing. Yeah. Now, it's possible English isn't your first language and you're not a troll, but not when you're using that word over and over again. Anyway, whatever. How do we get all the trolls? Yeah, cute. Yeah, I know what triggered means, Joshua. It's not appropriate to use when referring to somebody talking about Kamala Harris and how well she's going to do, right? Triggered isn't the right word. It means you don't speak English well. Yeah. No, trust me on this. The word, and they've used the word a lot. Every show somebody comes and throws the trigger word. Use the goat. I know I didn't use, sorry, I meant to, well, I didn't use the goat because I was trying to, while I was talking to you guys, go in and ban the word. I went and hid the word. So I was kind of like sneaking it in there while we were doing it. Oh, that's okay, Joshua. Okay, yeah. That's what was going on. The person used the word triggered when I was talking about like Kamala Harris and Gretchen Whitmer. And it was like, and the person had used it repeatedly. Previous shows, people come and use that word, and I keep forgetting to ban it because I keep going, that's a weird word. Another thing they do is they talk about crying. You're crying, look at you cry. And I'm like, and it's always like a time like this where we're talking like this and you're going, crying? Why am I'm not like, that doesn't even make sense. They're bots, which the word cry we may want to get rid of too, or crying, because honestly, how often do you guys use the word cry or crying? In any case, this is something you have to worry about when you run online communities. You're always looking for ways to kind of tweak the system. You guys have, this is why like some people get upset when the moderators moderate. You have no idea the amount of work that goes into keeping this discussion sane for the rest of you. Thank you, Joshua. There's no crying in baseball. Is that like a famous line from a movie or something, Sobo? Thanks, Joshua, for the gift. What else we got? Thank you, Masha and John. Every time I see your name, all I can think of is Marsha. You know this. I'm sure you've lived through life with this, but especially if you're my age. Thank you, Maureen, as well. Oh, from A League of Their Own? Okay, there's no crying in baseball. That's cute. I have not read the Epstein files. Springtrap just asked a super chat question. Ryan keeps asking on TikTok too. I mean to. I haven't. Oh, Tim, you just left DC for good. Congratulations. I tried. I still need to. I've never liked this town. What do you do? Alexa, lower the temperature 1 degree. Potentia, you may have asked me this before. What do I think about Keir Starmer? I just don't know enough about him. I mean, I just don't know, or like about him. I just don't know. He's the new British prime minister, but I don't know British politics well enough. I know he's on the left. I know on Ukraine they're good within reason, although frankly he just screwed up about the Storm Shadow cruise missiles. And I know the left, like under Corbyn, I followed that mess. He was an anti-Semitic, horrific socialist lunatic. He got gone, but he screwed up the British labor, the British left for a long time. Humidity is bad here today, but the temperature is okay. Like it's 80 degrees Fahrenheit right now. You'd have to Google what that is. I'm going to guess 25, 24, 25. What's 80? Something like that, which isn't bad, but super humid. But it's going back to 33 tomorrow. It's been, at least in Celsius, it's been the 30s for the last month, and it's going to be the 30s for the next month, and super humid. I am over it. You can't walk your dog. You can't do anything. It's horrible. Like, and today, of course, I couldn't walk her because it was raining. So I wanted to take her today, but I didn't because it was raining all day. I'm in DC, Joker. Yes. It's 101. Where are you, on the West Coast? Hey, JB. Thank you, Steve, for the gift. I'm guessing in Europe, you're not getting these temperatures, or Southern Europe. Southern Europe gets to be bad, though. Yeah, Vegas was 120. I did hear that. Now, Alexa, what's 120 degrees Fahrenheit in Celsius? I'm going to go with 46 or 7. Degrees Fahrenheit is about 48.9 degrees Celsius. 49 degrees Celsius in Las Vegas. Holy shit. 49 degrees Celsius, 120. Wow. Yeah, I heard out west was getting horrible. Absolutely horrible. Hey, John, or Jan in Denmark. I'm saying John. Yeah, if you're in Denmark, it's probably Jan. 55 Fahrenheit in Ireland. Oh my God. I mean, well, as my nephew who used to live in Arizona said, because it is a dry heat out there, but my nephew in Arizona said, it's a dry heat to a point. He says, once you get over 110 degrees, it's horrible. He said over 110, even though it's dry, it's disgusting. 110, I don't know, maybe it's 46 or something. No, I know 110. 110 is 44, 43, I think. Once it gets above that, he goes, forget it. It doesn't matter how dry it is. It's disgusting. On Corbyn, you need to do your research. It's sort of not debatable or discussable. The man's an anti-Semite. He tolerated anti-Semitism within the Labor Party in the Brits and got into a lot of trouble for it. That's like the entire scandal surrounding the guy is his coddling of anti-Semitism. So thank you, Angela, for the gift. I'm not even British, and I know that. Google it. It's been discussed at length. But yeah, the humidity is disgusting too. And my air conditioning, like it's going up to $160, $180 this month, which is crazy. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Marsha. It's never that hot. It's never that much in the summer, like ever. So I'm a little kind of like, I can afford $20, but still, no, it's disgusting. And you can't walk the dog because they can't go out in this kind of weather. It's just, literally I take her and we go down the block and we come back because it's not healthy for them, Hamish, I do have money in the stock market because I think if you're not American, I don't know, but Americans tend not to have retirement plans. So we have to have money in the market, like our retirement money, basically. So yeah. I am not going to buy the new iPhone 16 because I typically wait 3 years or even 4 until my phone dies. And then I get the new phone. My phone might be 2 years old my phone is probably 2.5 years old now. I typically try to wait. And I did I was reading some reviews of the iPhone 16 and people, is it the 16? The one that just came out or the one that's just coming out, they felt like isn't new enough. I was reading. So I'm going to wait if I can, but we'll see. But typically I wait until like the phone is just a disaster and then I get a new one, Or actually I may do it in November though, because typically that'll be 3 years. You want to, Friday, what's the, high tech Friday, whatever the hell it's called. In America, the month before Christmas, there's a super special for discounts for technology. And it's 1 month before Christmas. Black Friday? Is it Black Friday? I guess it's Black Friday. Yeah, Black Friday. Duh. It's not even tech. It's the Friday after Thanksgiving, one of our big national holidays. And in America, at least, let me tell you, if you're ever looking to get a new phone, the deals are outrageous. I got a trade-in on my iPhone. I got an $800 trade-in on my iPhone. Guys, they gave me an $800 credit on my damn phone. On not Cyber Monday. For phones, Cyber Monday is too late. How's that for interesting? So I waited till Cyber Monday. It was too late. For telephones, you want the Thursday and Friday. And like I said, they gave me $800 on my freaking phone as a trade-in. It was insane. They even, one of the ones I was looking at a couple years before that was like a $300 gift certificate to Walmart. If you went to Walmart and got the phone, and I was like $300 at Walmart? Jesus. Oh no, it's crazy. But Cyber Monday's for other goods. It's not for the phones. For phones, you want to look at that just my advice for the day to tell you, phones, you want to look at Friday. Yes, Amazon Prime Day is the 16th and 17th, which is never totally clear, to be honest. I've got a number of things I put for Prime Day, but it's not always clear what's going to be on sale. But I have gotten good stuff before. I've gotten good stuff. Jamie, I'd have to Google that one. Jamie says, I look like Keir Starmer. First of all, who knows who you look like, right? When I saw pictures of him, I certainly didn't think I looked like this guy. But then again, I would not think I look like this guy at all. He looks kind of white. I guess I'm white, but I don't know. I don't see it, but who knows? I don't think it's easy for us to see ourselves in other people. You know what I mean? It's very rare. Like occasionally I'll see somebody and be like, God, that looks like me. Like you see several people on TikTok are saying I do, but I think like occasionally you see people and you go, does that look like me? But otherwise you don't, I think in general. Best Buy, Target, etc. might roll out phone deals at the beginning of the holiday week. Okay, so they could even start that earlier. Phone deals could even start earlier. Oh, Anthony Bourdain I get all the time, which I also find very funny. Maybe because my hair's turned gray. But I think, I mean, well, it's funny because I don't think I look like Anthony Bourdain, but I guess I like that Bourdain was hot, right? So to the degree I look like Bourdain, I'm like, I'll accept it because but also the way he carried himself and everything, right? He was such a, I don't, maybe the word hot isn't right. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's hot. What's the word I'm looking for? You know? But you know what I mean? There was something, a swagger about him, his demeanor, the way he carried him. He was edgy too. I mean, he was edgy. The way he dressed and everything, his tattoos, which I'm definitely not that. Freddie Prinze Jr. I'll take Freddie Prinze Jr. That I would love. I've always thought Freddie Prinze Jr. was totally hot. He's getting a little older now, but he's always been hot. Married to Buffy. I think they're still together. I'm actually going to introduce Buffy to a friend tomorrow. I was like, you've never seen Buffy? How could you never have seen Buffy? There you go. Paula says he looks like me. There you go. That's the best way to do it. Yeah, Freddie Prinze was okay. Freddie Prinze Jr. is hot. Again, he's older now. Anthony was charismatic. There's something about it. I think it's the way he carried himself too. It's very sad. I mean, obviously depression and that stuff. You know what I mean? You know what it reminds me of? My Shakespeare class in college. I was a rhetoric major, which is writing, but it's within the English department. And we had a Shakespeare class, senior year of college. And we were studying King Lear. And I don't remember much about King Lear other than he was crazy. And I think he had his daughter killed or something, but he did bad things to his daughter because he went crazy and believed these conspiracies about her or whatever. And we were talking in class about it. And I remember our professor asking us, I mean, her answer might have been simple, but I don't think it was simple. She asked us, because it stuck in my head all these years. This was back in the 1980s, guys. And she said, why did King Lear do what he did to his daughter? And we were all trying to come up with reasons, and none of us could really come up with it. And she said, basically, he was crazy. You will not, and I don't mean to use the word crazy for depression, but my point is psychological issues. She said, you will not understand someone who's paranoid or conspiracy theories or whatever. You won't understand their motivations because you don't think that way. Like it doesn't. And I feel often when I hear about depression and people who kill themselves that I don't understand. I was asking once on Twitter about this and we started an interesting conversation because I don't understand it. You know what I mean? Like, anyway, you get this. I mean, from what people have told me, I don't want to start a whole discussion on depression because that's its own topic, but people were telling me, at least on Twitter, that it's like this, literally it can be debilitating, not wanting to get out of bed for days. I mean, and I asked, like, does stuff trigger it? And they were like, no, like very often, because I was like, okay, but is it like somebody dies or something, you lose your job, like somebody breaks up with you? And they were like, no. They said literally, like, out of nowhere, you will just get this overwhelming depression and not want to leave bed for 3 days, but out of nowhere. And I was like, holy shit. So like the Bourdain thing blows my mind because we would look at him and think, this guy was hot and interesting and at the height of his career, traveling the world for CNN and doing amazing and renowned, like everybody loved his show. So interesting, and kills himself. Robin Williams, same thing, right? Huge comedian, hugely successful, loved by everybody, and kills himself. And it's just, yeah, as Blue Sky just said, it's not sadness or grief. Exactly. Like I was asking about it because I was like, is that what it is? Which again, only makes it that much more inscrutable to the rest of us, because if you don't have that kind of feeling, you can't even understand it, because you're like, I mean, I don't mean to use the colloquial and say it's crazy, but it's crazy in the sense of like, I just can't even fathom it, And well, Amy Winehouse, although she overdosed, that wasn't depression, was it? Was it though? I know she was brilliant. I really liked her. I loved her music. I'm not, wasn't a big fan of her drug use, but she did have both. Okay. I didn't know that. I mean, I don't understand depression, so to speak, but I was, like I said, we got into this was back when Twitter was before Elon. We had a really interesting, I asked people and people weighed in and gave maybe it was one of those National Depression Mental Health Awareness Days or whatever, or Suicide Hotline Day or whatever it's called, where people kind of go public and talk about this stuff. And I asked people because I was really curious. And what was good too is I got a good answer. Like it wasn't a bullshit answer. because I was expecting asking the question and people doing that's not how you ask the question. That's not how you refer, which frankly, I got on transgender issues all the time. Every time you tried to help on transgender issues, that's not the way we say it. And you were like, leave me alone. Whereas on the depression stuff, it was nice. You could ask questions and people were like, okay, no, here's how it works. Very interesting. But anyway, what do you do? Ow. I had a little like bug walking on my arm. I hate insects, but it was like just that little bit of a tingle, and I saw a black thing, and I went, ugh. It's like I don't know why I hate insects. It's like a little bit of a morbid fear of that, like, or not a fear, like a Willie's fear, like, Well, great artists, that's a whole other kind of thing. I mean, I do think, like I've always said, I think there's my theory of mental health or whatever. I think to be a bit of a genius, you've got to be a little crazy. But I've always said that I think, and I'm talking like, I know people more that are geniuses in politics, right? Versus other fields, because that's where I work. But I've always believed that I've always the theory I put out there was to be a genius, and again, to be an effective genius, but to be an effective one, you have to be 49% crazy. 51% sane, but 49% crazy. Thank you, Suzanne. I know, stable genius. That's exactly it. And the people who are 51% crazy are the ones who don't do well, right? Either, again, end up killing themselves, or they end up just being ineffective through life or whatever it is, because the bad side of their brain is too powerful, right? Whereas I often wondered, look at the number of poets, again, English major-ish in college, the number of poets who killed themselves, my God, or tried to kill themselves. I mean, my God, it was horrible. This was the 1980s already. And it got me thinking of genius and just that. Like, I think sometimes to think differently, you have to be wired differently, and to be wired differently. Sylvia Plath's my favorite, actually, Flower Lady. She was the one I was thinking of. She tried multiple times. Thank you, Mario. To be a genius, you have to think differently, and to think differently, you have to be a little crazy. And I use the crazy in a vernacular, maybe, but I don't totally use it in a vernacular. I use it in a, you've got to be able to see things other people don't see, to be a poet. But frankly, to do politics is the same way. Thank you, Desley. I've always found politics and poetry and math and everything else connected, in the sense that it's seeing things other people don't see. Whether it's poetry, it's emotions that they're not seeing, and in a sense, right, that you're seeing nuances in emotion. If it's math, obviously. If it's science, right, it's eureka moments, things like that. In politics, it's the same thing. In politics, so much of our work is reading tea leaves. It's, my work has been for decades looking at little bits of information and trying to see patterns, right? Weathermen, same concept, I guess, but trying to see patterns and say, okay, he said this, he said this, he said this. A month ago, they said this. This is what's actually going on, right? I don't know music, though. I don't know music. But I often wonder about the mental health of people like that, because if you see a lot of nuance in the world, I think it can be overwhelming, right? I mean, sometimes I've thought it would be really nice and comfortable to be kind of dumb, fat, dumb, and happy, as a law professor of mine used to call it. Fat, dumb, and happy. Because to not think about stuff, to not worry about stuff, to not see, just to not always see little differences and I don't know. It's just too much info. D. Lyle just called it too much info. That's one way of putting it. Yeah, that's one way of putting it. And I think poets, let's face it, if your whole life is getting so involved in, actually, the Germans had a word, or have a word. I remember learning this word in college that I thought was very interesting. I think this would be correct, the meaning of it, but Weltschmerz, and it's like something like feeling the pain of the world kind of thing. And I've always thought that, at least for poets, or possibly politics activists, right? Anyway, I think it's very interesting. It's just sort of a concept I've always had of, like I said, people who are geniuses, whether it's in activism or politics or art or math or science, that they think differently. But if they think too differently, Elon Musk, I think, is hitting that 51%. There's something going on there that isn't good, right? But he's genius, but boy, there's something really not good there, right? And it unfortunately controls him more than the good side. It controls him, period. I think in good geniuses, the 51 controls the 49. In Elon's case, the 49, the bad takes control. It could be the Asperger's. I'm not. I don't know enough about Asperger's, but I always feel like that's a cop out with Elon, because Elon does stuff that Elon knows what he's doing. Elon just, unfortunately, Elon kind of sucks up to fascisty issues sometimes. He just does. That's his weird little, letting all the neo-Nazis back on Twitter, all that crap. I mean, he's just got a little, maybe it is the Asperger's, but he's woo-woo, he may not be a genius. I don't know. I know people who say he's not a genius, overwhelmed to say. True. I mean, from what people say, he bought Tesla. It was somebody else's company, so who knows? I mean, he may be a hype merchant, or he may, I don't know. I don't know enough about that. I mean, I don't like the guy. I think he's horrible from what I've learned about him the last few years. But I still am impressed at what he's pulled off with SpaceX and Tesla. But I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, can you really say the CEO doesn't matter? At some point, you'd think the CEO does matter, right? I've never seen a rocket launch in person, Andrew. And when I was working for a U.S. senator, I was invited by NASA multiple times and never really made it down. And part of it was you get invited down to Florida, but there's no guarantee that the launch is going to go off. And if it gets scrubbed, then you're kind of screwed. And it bummed me out, because I should have tried anyway, obviously, to go see, space shuttle launches well, maybe there wasn't a space shuttle back then in the early 90s. May not have been a space shuttle at that point, but other stuff launching, Anyway. Oh, you were saying toxic? Oh, I'm sure Tesla's toxic. Look at what he did to Twitter. He's a toxic guy. I mean, could there have been a space shuttle in the early 90s, Ash? I don't remember when was the last space shuttle 96? When was it? Maybe it was. I think it was. I think they were shuttle launches. I think they were shuttle launches that I got invited to, which would have been really cool. Yeah. Alexa, when was the last space shuttle launch? Let's find out. No. Alexa, when was the last space shuttle launch?
Space Shuttle Endeavour first flew on May 7th, 1992.
What? The Space Shuttle Endeavour first flew in 1992. That wasn't my question, but I guess there was a launch in 1992. Alexa, what was the last space shuttle to take off?
According to an Alexa Answers contributor, the final space shuttle mission, STS-135, the last flight of the orbiter Atlantis, lifted off from Launch Pad 39A at NASA Space Center, KSC,
2011?
Florida on July 8, 2011.
Oh, okay. Everyone jumped in 2011. Okay. Wow, that was late. Oh my God. I didn't know it was that late. Wow. Okay, so they were space shuttle launches. I remember it being shuttle launches. Yeah, I screwed up, even though it would have been a pain, but I was like, I just should have gone. NASA was paying for free to fly me down there. It's like, what the hell? Too bad. Oh, well. And it is always funny that other people's Alexas, I always say, Alexa, launch the missiles. It's like, She said, do you hear the explosions? A little creepy. Anyway. Hi. Okay, I'll get you water. 1 second. All right, guys, I'm gonna call it quits. It is 7:49 p.m. We've been doing Discord. Are you in? Yeah, exactly, Sobo. We've been doing this for an hour and 50 minutes. Let's call it quits here. Tomorrow, I'm coming. Just wait. Tomorrow morning, we've got our show at 11 a.m. Eastern for all of our paid subscribers. So everybody with SNN next to your name, you're invited on TikTok. Everybody whose name is green on YouTube, you're invited. It is our hangout. It is very nice. It's very mellow. Thank you, NAR. And it's a chance for a much smaller group of people. It's okay, Ash, if you're not there, because tomorrow's not trolly. And we get no trolls because the trolls don't pay. So it's a nice hangout. Okay, and see you tomorrow, Andrew. It's a very nice hangout. It's just a very nice hangout. So we because I basically am able to like read your comments. So there's almost, pretty much everyone we can talk, because it's not like this show where there's so many more people, So anyway, try to join us tomorrow if you can. It's a fun group. We go for about an hour. So every time. All right. Have a good night, guys. We've never had a troll, although I don't want to kind of tempt them, Lamar. Then again, if they want to pay, you go. You want to give me a month's membership to troll? Go for it, because we can block you anyway. So I did check that. We can still block a troll or mute. We can still block or mute a subscriber. So I was like, okay, good. Go for it. You want to pay me? Yes. All right, guys. Let me have a good night. Let me say goodbye. I'll see some of you tomorrow. Otherwise, the rest of you, Monday at 6:00 p.m. Eastern Time, US. I will be back. All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks for the gifts. Thanks, mods. I know today was crazy, but you know, Russia losing 700 or 70,000 troops in 2 months got the trolls very upset. I'm doing that on purpose to see if any of them pop up right now and say it's a lie. Don't. By the way, don't trick us by saying it's a lie to be funny, because the mods will ban you. We've had that happen too. People were trying to be funny and act like trolls to be funny, and then we didn't know we banned them. All right. Anyway, goodbye TikTok. Goodbye YouTube. Let me. Where's YouTube? There's YouTube. Hang on. If they pay, are they still a troll? That's very existential. That's very existential.